Hi, second graders. We've made it to Friday. We've had a great week. We've learned so much. We've come to the end of our math chapter 13. We've spent a lot of time practicing and working on our 3-digit subtraction and all the different ways that we can do it, answering it in word problems, or sometimes we rename and sometimes we don't. And I feel really confident in you guys. Today you're going to do your chapter 13 review. It's page 223 to 224. I need you to complete this one today and make sure you get it turned in because this is going to count as a quiz grade. All right? I tried to think about if there was a way I could put this on Teams, but because you need to work the problems and sometimes rename or maybe draw a picture, it didn't seem like the right thing to put on a Teams quiz. So I'm going to have you take that quiz there at your house, but be sure you have your grown-ups help you submit it on Teams so that I can see your work, okay, and enter in grades in your grade book. I feel really confident. I know you guys have worked hard on this concept, and I know you can do well on this. For reading today, we are going to take a look at a poem. We spent earlier in the week reading acts of a play. Today we're going to read some poetry. I love poetry. Poetry is a special kind of writing that really uses lots of descriptive words, and it's a kind of writing that usually makes you feel something. Some poetry just makes us laugh or feel happy. Some poetry might make you feel sad, or it might make you think about something that you miss. They use lots of describing words, lots of adjectives, right? And so I think you're going to enjoy this poem. I want you to notice if there are words in the poem that make you think of using your 5 senses. Really, lots of really good adjectives make you think like that, almost like you're experiencing what the writer was thinking and feeling when they wrote the poem. Let's go over a few vocabulary words that you're going to hear in this poem. The poem is on page 128, I believe. Yes, well, 129. There's a picture on 128, but the poem begins on 129 of your reading book. Here are some of the vocabulary words you're going to hear in this poem. Bronze, mole, roast, freckle, quiver, shingles. Okay, bronze is a brown metal that is made from copper and tin. Annie has a freckle on her cheek. That's an example of how to use that. I bet you know what freckle is. Some of us have them on our faces, little dots on our faces. Mole, okay? That is a little furry animal that digs tunnels in people's yard. Quiver. A quiver is a holder for arrows. So a hunter that shoots with a bow and arrow might carry a quiver on his back and he can pull the arrows out. A roast is a kind of meat you can eat, right? So maybe some of the grown-ups in your house like to cook a roast in the oven. Shingles are pieces of wood or tile that are used to make a roof. All right. So now when I read this poem to you, I'd like you to think about your 5 senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling, and notice if some of these adjectives, some of the describing words in this poem make you think of using those 5 senses. All right. This is a poem called What is Brown? And while I read the poem, I want you to think about what the color brown looks like, sounds like, tastes like, smells like, feels like. Okay? What is brown? Poetry by Mary O'Neill. Brown is the color of a country road. Back of a turtle, back of a toad. Brown is cinnamon and morning toast and the good smell of the Sunday roast. Brown is the color of work and the sound of a river. Brown is bronze and a bow and a quiver. Brown is the house on the edge of town where wind is tearing the shingles down. Brown is a freckle. Brown is a mole. Brown is the earth where you dig a hole. Brown is hair on many a head. Brown is chocolate and gingerbread. Brown is a feeling you get inside when your wondering makes your mind grow wide. Brown is a leather shoe and a good glove. Brown is as comfortable as love. I like that poem. I like all of the different adjectives that showed up in that, all of the descriptive words that made us think about how brown would smell and taste and how we would experience it. I hope you enjoy that poem as well. And we have one worksheet to do, both sides, 315 to 316. I would like you to do that worksheet today. And I also want you to do, at the end, after you've watched all the videos and done any homework assigned, I would like you to get onto Teams and do your end of the week quiz. And it will review some other things about our reading. Let's talk about our spelling for today. You're going to do the last spelling review worksheet for this list, for list 25, that's page 101. And I want you to take a good look at your spelling words, do this last worksheet, and then when you feel ready, your spelling quiz is on Teams. And I would like you to open that up, and each question needs to be answered with a word from your spelling list. So some of those questions are going to say, what is a synonym for? Remember, synonym, it's a word that means the same thing or almost the same thing, right? But you can only answer with words from your spelling list, okay? So, and on your worksheet, you're going to be dividing things into syllables. Let's take a look at these two words. Saddle, cuddle, those are both spelling words, and we can hear that they have two syllables. Saddle, cuddle, okay? And in this case, you break up that two-syllable word right between the double consonant, okay? So they'll give you lots of examples of that where you'll divide them in between the two syllables, okay? For example, if I said, what is a spelling word that is also a synonym for laugh? What would you say that is a synonym for laugh? That would be giggle, right? Oh, and we can even divide the syllable. Giggle, okay? So notice I don't say, oh, chuckle. No, because that's not a spelling word. If I say, what's a synonym for laugh, and you need to choose a word from your spelling list, the answer is giggle. Okay? So on your spelling quiz, I've given you lots of different questions or definitions or asking you for a synonym, and each answer needs to be a word from your spelling list. So do page 101, take a last look over your spelling list, and then put all of that away and open up your quiz on Teams and do your spelling quiz. Hello, second graders. Let's talk about science. We read some portions of the science book. I want you to have that out again, and let's review some of the things that we read about. Do you remember when I had my assistant, Harper, rearrange? I had said, I don't want the chair there. I need it to move over there, push it that way, or pull it back this direction. Do you remember when I had her do that? Did the chair move by itself? No, Harper had to push it or pull it to get it to go where it was going, okay? So we're going to talk a lot in this chapter about movement, motion, how things move, okay? A force is what is needed for something to move. If when this marker is sitting on the desk, it's just going to sit there. It's not going to move unless an outside force acts on it. If somebody pushes it, it might might roll off the desk, right? If someone needs to use it, they can pick it up off the desk, okay? But the marker isn't going to move unless there's a force acted on it. So we see examples of this all day in our lives. Every time there's movement, we could stop and think about, why is that moving? Is the force that's behind it a push or a pull? Okay, those are interesting things for you to to think about. We're going to do several different activities that can help you consider that. And you have to consider that all the movement, all the motion happens. A lot of it depends on how strong the force is. How strong is the force pushing or pulling? Also, how big is the object? What is the mass of the object that's being moved, that is in motion? Okay, so these are the kind of things that you've been reading about it. We're going to think about it. We're going to try to observe that. And when you've read, we also read the word motion. That's one of your vocabulary words. The same as force, push, pull, motion. Motion is just when an object moves. Okay, so I want you to start being aware of when you see things moving, when you see an object move, think about what is the force that's behind that. Okay, whenever you are playing with your toys and you push a car along, that's a force that's causing it to move. Someone who studied a lot and made a big influence in how we understand motion and force and all of that was a scientist from a long time ago named Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, whenever he would sit and think about how the world worked and why it worked, it was like he could understand so many things and he put it down in writing. He wrote laws of gravity and laws of different things. He wrote laws of motion. Okay, someday when you're older in science classes, you'll probably memorize them. Newton's laws of motion. He said Newton's first law of motion is when an object is still, it's going to stay still unless something else acts on it. And if you get it to going in one direction, it'll keep going in that direction unless another outside force moves it into a new direction. Like think about a bowling ball. When you roll a bowling ball, it's just going to keep rolling unless something else comes in its way and changes its direction. Okay. He also said that he made laws about how much force is required for movement. He wrote a law. The third law is about how when one object exerts force on another object, it will bring force back, which you could think about if you push someone and then they push back against you. Okay. Those are just small examples of how we might see these laws of motion. We might be observing them all the time without realizing what we're seeing. Now, to practice some of those ways, to get you thinking about what are some of the ways that you're observing motion and force and the laws of motion being at work in your just everyday life, I have a little game and I need a special assistant to help me. Ta-da! We are going to act out some motions, and then we're going to try to guess what each other are doing, and then we're going to say, what force do we think is at work in this motion? Is it pushing? Is it pulling? Is it both? All right? Assistant Harper, you go first. Read, act out, and I'll guess what you're doing. Okay. Are you playing the violin?
Yes.
Playing the violin, okay. Is that pushing or pulling or both?
I would assume both.
I would say both. And even when you just start acting it out, you can feel it. Push and pull, okay? Now, my turn. Okay.
Hitting a home run.
Yes. Pushing or pulling?
Pushing?
Pushing. Yeah, I think so too. Okay, your turn.
Yeah. Okay. You're going shopping. Yes.
You're pushing the shopping cart.
Mm-hmm.
And then what were I would say pushing and pulling. Both, yeah. Okay. Oh, my turn. Okay. No peeking. All right. Okay.
Putting on a shirt? Or a
A
jacket.
jacket, yeah. What do you think?
Like, well, pulling.
Yeah, pull. I think you're right. It helps to act it out yourself, doesn't it?
Okay, last one.
Last one. Do it again. Oh, open the door. Open a door. I would say
Pull.
yeah.
Or unless it's like a push door.
It's true. It depends on what kind of door, which happens a lot. Have you ever gone to a store and you're trying to go in and you think the door is locked, but you're pushing and it's a pulling door?
And then you see that little sign push.
Yeah, or the other way around.
Yeah.
That's right. So I appreciated, you might have read in your science book, force, motion, push, pull. And those all just maybe sound sort of sciencey. But when you imagine all the times we see this at work in just everyday life, isn't that cool? The world God made is amazing. And I'm so glad there are people like Sir Isaac Newton, who had such strong creative brains, that he was watching and observing the world around him, and then he wrote down what he was observing. And scientists since then, and school children all over, have been learning that the things he came up with, the laws of motion that he came up with, are true. They stand true to different tests, and we can observe them in our daily lives. Today in English, we are finishing out chapter 11, learning about adjectives. So after you watch your video today and finish all the videos and all the homeworks, then you're going to go on to Teams to take your quizzes. You have 3 quizzes on Teams today. One of them is your chapter 11 English quiz, okay? Where it's all about adjectives. That's what chapter 11 has been about. Adjectives are words that describe what? Adjectives describe nouns. Nouns are person, place, or thing, right? Adjectives can answer questions. They can answer questions, what kind? Or they can answer the question, how many? Okay? When we answer the question, what kind, we can use the kind of describing word like Frozen 2 was a fantastic movie. Oh, really? What kind of movie? Fantastic. The adjective in the sentence answers the question, what kind? Fantastic. Okay? And when you use an adjective to answer the question, how many? Sometimes that is a number word. You could just say, there were 2 girls playing. How many girls? 2. Okay, and 2 is the adjective. You can also use other words to describe how many. If you say few or some or many or all, those type of words can also answer the question, how many? Okay, all the second graders love Pokemon. How many second graders? All. Okay, so all can be how many. Answer the question, how many, kind of adjective, okay? Adjective words, describing words, use the senses. So sometimes when you read a sentence like I have a soft kitten, and then it's, well, what sense are you using to say soft? Well, that's feel, that's touch, okay? So your quiz is going to have some sentences about that. What sense do you use for that adjective? Or what question is it answering, okay? Or there are also adjectives that compare. And adjectives that compare usually end in ER or EST. When an adjective ends in an ER, you are comparing 2 nouns. When it ends in an EST, you are comparing more than 2, all right? So let's think about what you've learned about adjectives. Think about all the different ways you've learned to use them and good examples of them. And one thing that we've talked some about is how much it helps to use a synonym if you're trying to come up with a new adjective. A synonym is a word that means the same or almost the same. Okay, and so you might have one adjective, good, That's an adjective, but maybe you want to use a synonym and you think great or excellent, okay? So these are all things that you will be asked about on your Chapter 11 quiz, which is on Teams. I need you to sign into that today and take that quiz. Okay, second graders, so you've watched the videos of all the different subjects. I'm just wanting to review with you that because today is Friday, we'll be taking our quizzes. So your homework that you need to do to turn in is the math chapter review. You have a reading worksheet, you have a spelling worksheet, and then you need to do the 3 quizzes on Teams. All right, that's your homework for today. So this is the end of the video, so I know you've watched the video, do your 3 worksheets of homework, and then do the 3 quizzes on Teams, and you're done for the weekend. So work hard on this work for Friday, and I'm very proud of you and how hard you're working, and I look forward to going on Teams and seeing all of your quizzes and all of your homework.